Hello, I'm Tim Snyder, and I'll be your instructor for these next 8 weeks. I'm new here at Wartburg Seminary, having just joined the faculty this past fall as an adjunct instructor of theology and spirituality. I currently live in Boston, Massachusetts with my partner Lindsay, and I'm working on a PhD in theology at Boston University. I also serve part-time in ministry as a director of education at Faith Lutheran Church here in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And I'm also a project assistant for the National Congregational Studies team, which is a group of practical theologians and sociologists who study American congregations. My educational background has been really seeped in the Lutheran tradition until somewhat recently when I arrived here in Boston. I first studied theology as an undergraduate at Texas Lutheran University. I had gone to TLU to study music, but my experience in leading an alternative worshiping community on campus soon got me asking questions I didn't easily have answers for. The more I studied theology, I didn't get more answers, I just got more questions. And almost 10 years later, that's still what's happening, so I'm still studying. I still very much think about myself as a student of theology. I did my seminary training at Luther Seminary in St. Paul, where I lived for 3 years. It was a wonderful place for me to be. There, I really threw myself deep into my studies, and it was there that I really developed my interest in contemporary American religion and what we might talk about as a sort of everyday theology, a capacity for theologically reflecting on the very stuff of everyday life. Here at Boston University, in my doctoral studies, I've been focusing mostly on contemporary theology, especially the field of practical theology and ecclesiology, but also in the sociology of religion. And those two influences you'll notice throughout this course. For about the past 10 years, I've been studying theology, but I've been doing so within particular communities of faith and with them in mind. From 2007 to 2009, I served as a lay pastor developer for a community called the Netzer Co-op. The co-op was a community of young adults who were exploring new ways of being church together. And then shortly after I moved to St. Paul for seminary, I took a call at Hope Lutheran Church, where I served as the director of outreach and then later on as the founding director of the Heights Center for Hope, which was a community center in East St. Paul. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm currently serving in ministry at a congregation here in Cambridge, Massachusetts. So I'm serving there as the director of education at Faith Lutheran. I'm quite excited to be with you for these next few weeks. One of the things that excites me the most about being a teacher is walking alongside students as they learn new concepts and ask questions and bring their own experience of faith and the church to the classroom. Early on, a mentor of mine, he told me that the thing about studying theology is that if you have this belief or this idea and you want to go deeper with it, and so you do, but if you do this thing right, you may be challenged in that idea or that conviction. And that may take you to places you never thought that you would go. But the opposite is true too. You may not be challenged. You may be even more convinced than before of your belief or idea. And that too could take you to places where you never thought you would go. And so, in many ways, as somebody who teaches theology, I'm here to walk alongside you. Or, as Mary Pallura wrote in her book, God's Fierce Whimsy, she writes, "If there is anything worth calling theology, it is listening to people's stories, listening to them, cherishing them, and asking them to become even more brightly beautiful than they already are. So that's what we're going to do this semester. So, as we get started here, let us begin with prayer. For our opening prayer, I'm using words from one of my favorite spiritual writers, John O'Donohue. This is a prayer or a blessing even for a new beginning. In out of the way places of the heart, where your thoughts never think to wander, this beginning has been quietly forming, waiting until you were ready to emerge. For a long time, it has watched your desire, feeling the emptiness growing inside you, noticing how you willed yourself on, still unable to leave what you had outgrown. It watched you play with the seduction of safety and the gray promises that sameness whispered, heard the waves of turmoil rise and relent, wondered, would you always live like this? Then, the delight when your courage kindled and out you stepped onto new ground, your eyes young again with energy and dreams, a path of plenitude opening before you. Though your destination is not yet clear, you can trust the promise of this opening. Unfurl yourself into the grace of beginning that is at once with your life's desire. Awaken your spirit of adventure, hold nothing back, and learn to find ease in risk. Soon, you will be at home in a new rhythm, for your soul senses the world that awaits you.